This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast. It is Sunday, August 27th, 2023. I'm back. I am back. Vacation is over, and it's time to talk wrestling. Of course, not on the best of topics, of course, not exactly the news that we want to hear. You know, and at this point, the whole Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk, who is being overshadowed by Bray Wyatt simply because of the timing of his passing. But we don't want to forget Terry Funk, of course. Not exactly the best, but it's been dissected and everyone's given their opinions. I haven't really spoken much on it yet. You heard Anthony DeMarco, who covered it very nicely in a tribute show that was done on his typical retro spot on Friday. And him and I will talk tomorrow, in part at least, in the conversation with our current state of WWE, and give our opinions while we're, actually on the air, and really, what is there to say? What is there to say that hasn't already been said about him? When you see that come across, it's one of those things, man, that's just, it brings you back to reality. And it reminds you of your own mortality, your family members, your friends' mortality. And that's the one opponent that's undefeated. It's death, not to be morbid, but it's true. And it brings everything back into perspective. And there are certain deaths that hit harder than others. Not that any human life is worth less than any other, but let's be honest, not every human life is lived the same. Not every human life has the same impact on your own personal life. So, but my point in saying that is that there are certain deaths in pro wrestling specifically that hit harder than others. And this one, this one to me hit as hard as Eddie Guerrero's did in 2005. Now, we've had many since then, between 2005 and 2023, of course, many. Some, obviously hurt more than others. Just because of the connection you have with that character and the relatability that you have with that character. And, this one was tough, especially when you watched SmackDown and you saw some of the interviews that were done with various stars. You saw the video package, which was excellent. I mean, just top notch as always. And I don't know how WWE has been able to crank out so many high quality videos in such a short time. My God, I don't know how they did it. I just don't know how they do it. They just are absolute professionals over there. Whoever is hired in that media and video editing department should be given a raise. But this one hit hard, and it's difficult to watch the Bray Wyatt tribute without getting choked up. It just is. Many of us, 99.9% of us that are listening, had no personal connection to Bray. Never met him. Most of us, right? Most of us didn't. Some of you may have been lucky enough to. Maybe even some of you out there have somewhat of a relationship with Bray outside of outside of just being a fan. Maybe some of you do, but I would imagine that the vast, vast majority of us don't. And it's really a testament to his connection with us that he's been able to make us feel like we knew him when we didn't know him outside of television. That's the kind of connection that we have. That's how you know it's a genuine connection. And I've been critical of his character. I'm sure some of you are going to say, "Oh, you didn't like his character." Yeah, well, I did, but I got kind of fed up with the nonsense gobbledygook, as LA Knight perfectly put it. And I didn't know where the hell he was going with his character after Uncle Howdy showed up. And I thought to myself, by the way, on a side note, this isn't to make light of anything, but can we finally be told who Uncle Howdy is or was going to be revealed as? I mean, the storyline's dead and over, unless Uncle Howdy's going to continue on with his own story. can we at least be told the identity of Uncle Howdy? I mean, with Bray Wyatt gone, it's obviously not going to be followed up on, you would imagine. So maybe we can close that close that loophole. And anyway, so yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what to say about it. It's just it's a tough one and it's tough in the fact that he had a family, he had young children, he had a wife, and the heart issue reason was the reason he died. Of course, COVID exacerbated it, and he had a massive heart attack. I mean, I don't know the details of it. I don't know if this was out of the blue completely, or if he went to the hospital for something and all of a sudden, wham, he got. I mean, I don't know, but those details, I'm sure, will eventually come out. But still, at 36 years old, having that kind of heart condition, it must have been pretty damn serious for, at that age. You're well out of the high risk group of COVID, and it must have just been something that just perfectly agitated whatever heart condition he did have, which makes you also wonder, even if he didn't get COVID, how long he would have lived. I mean, God knows, I have no idea. But if it was that serious that, he died that early because of that condition that was exacerbated, it just makes you wonder how long he actually would have lasted and what condition it actually was. So, I mean, those of course are the kind of non as important details here as just the loss of a human being and loss of a special guy from everyone that has been tweeting. All the wrestlers, seems like nobody's got a bad word to say. And it's a tough one, that video package is still, no matter how many times you watch it back, it'll be tough to watch every single time. And, I tweeted this out just recently that it's kind of poetic that Bray Wyatt, when he did come back to WWE, returned through a door of light, and now he's going back through it. So, I don't know, just something I kind of, my brain connected. So, it's crazy that, half of the Wyatt family is gone. Half of the Wyatt family is gone. All right. Well, I just don't know much more to say about it. If you want to hear a little bit more of a recap of his career and a bit more of in depth of what he meant to others on our show, you can listen to Anthony DeMarco's recap that was done on Friday, and it's titled Bray Wyatt from what he meant from a fan's perspective, and it's brief, but it's definitely worth listening to as he kind of just high level recaps his career from the birth of the Wyatt family through Firefly Funhouse and obviously Fiend and his return and all that kind of stuff. So, but guys, it's a tough one. And it's always interesting, you can go months, years even, without a major death in your own personal life, or even extended out to the pro wrestling world, where there's I'm not talking the guys that are like 95 years old that you're, when they die, you're like, oh, I didn't even know they were still alive. Like Bob Barker, right? Like Bob Barker died, and I'm like, oh, I actually thought he was already dead. I mean, I did. He's 99 years old, almost 100. So I'm not talking about those guys. I mean, they've lived full lives. It's not as sad. But for somebody to have it happen suddenly with a family and they're, a third through their life, maybe a little more than a third, probably 40%. It's tough. So, all right. Well, I don't want to belabor this. You guys have heard all the different tributes, all the different kind of thoughts and prayers types of stuff. And I don't want to keep laboring that. So I want to talk a little bit more. Let's talk about SmackDown a little bit, which I thought was a very nice show. You open with Michael Cole doing the dual 10 bell salute for Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt, which I thought was, is well done. Not the 10 bell salute, which is just, of course, there's no skill in that. The video package was perfect for Bray Wyatt. There'll probably be others as we move along. And everyone out there on stage, no one seemed to be visibly crying. I always look for that. Not that I'm thinking to myself, well, whoever's not crying doesn't care. It's just always interesting to see who is, brought to tears visually on camera and who isn't. But I didn't see anyone. Maybe Zelina Vega after the tribute was crying. Again, these aren't judgments on passing. It's just always interesting to see to me, like who's sobbing, who's not, who's got a tear in their eye, who doesn't. But the video package was well done, and having the chair there was a perfect way to end the beginning of the show with the rocking chair. It was perfect. You could just picture him sitting in the chair and cackling or sitting there with his lantern or whatever it may be. And so that was a great way. I don't know how they put all this stuff together so quickly. It was such a 24-hour turnaround since he died to the show actually being aired. So well done by WWE as always. Unfortunately, they kind of have the tribute shows down to a science. But yeah. So all right. Well, after that, we did get a Rey Mysterio versus Grayson Waller matchup. And, Grayson Waller I don't think he's won a match since he's debuted on the main roster. I'm pretty sure he's like 0 for 5 or something. That said, now some people are worried about him. Some people are like, oh my God, he hasn't won a match. But it's pro wrestling, number one, where wins and losses don't mean what they do in other traditional sports. Now, you can't go on a 50 match losing streak and have it mean nothing. It's harder to kind of twist that narrative to be making it be okay. But with Grayson Waller here, I'm not worried. Why? Think about the guys he's lost to. Edge, Rey Mysterio. Okay, I think there's another big name in there. He's lost to some big names. He's also interacting with The Rock on social media. He's doing okay. He's doing just fine. I'm not worried about him. So while he's losing to top tier legendary talent. Okay. So I'm not concerned about Grayson Waller in the least right now from a near future or even kind of intermediate medium range for his career. I'm really not. But all right. So let's continue on here with the matchup. The matchup was good. We had Rey Mysterio beat Waller in 12 minutes, so Waller takes another L. The ending of this match was Theory landing a chop on Escobar, who was ringside. Rey took him down with a baseball slide. Waller attempted to capitalize, but Mysterio landed a 619, and then Theory attempted to prevent the follow-up springboard splash, but Escobar took him out, and then Rey landed a splash and got the win. So Grayson Waller loses clean to Rey Mysterio, but I believe it's next week. We have, is it next week or Payback, that we have a United States title match between Austin Theory and Rey, and I think it is. I think it is Payback. If it is Payback, that makes more sense. And there's a real chance here that Austin Theory regains the belt. I know many people are shaking their head. There kind of is, because do you really want LA Knight beating Rey Mysterio for that belt? Wouldn't LA Knight beating Austin Theory make more sense unless they make it a triple threat? Because you don't want LA Knight winning from a babyface, for his first major championship. And we'll get to LA Knight a little bit later, which I thought he absolutely knocked it out of the park. But Grayson Waller loses. Fine. Rey Mysterio picks up the victory. This was also a show that was a feel-good show. So you have to think about that too. It's a feel-good show where you don't want to bring the crowd down too much. They're already down. They're already beaten down with the loss of Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. They're already in kind of a depression of sort. Well, that's a bit of an extreme. Their mood isn't exactly elevated. Let's just put it that way, right? So the WWE maybe have slightly altered some plans with having certain stars win that maybe not otherwise would have. I wouldn't call it an exhibition show. There were some absolute progression in storylines, but it was a feel-good night. You wanted to bring the crowd up and leave the crowd happy and all that kind of stuff. It makes total sense. So this wasn't a throwaway episode of SmackDown from a storyline perspective by any means, but you have to keep that in mind with these kinds of tribute shows that perhaps WWE is just kind of just tweaking the finishes of matches so that the crowd is, getting their mind off of Bray and their mood is being elevated. So that I think had at least a small factor in these outcomes here. All right. Let's see here. We got Zelina Vega versus Io Sky for the WWE Women's Championship. And Yeah, when I first saw this match, I'm like, what the hell did Zelina do to earn this? You know, I'm a massive Zelina fan. Everyone knows that listens to this show. As if it matters that I'm a Zelina fan, but I am. Okay. But I was sitting there going, well, what the hell did she do to earn it? And to WWE's credit, they actually showed us 2 separate victories that she has over Io Sky. That was important to me. I'm thinking to myself, I totally forgot about those victories for Zelina. So I'm thinking to myself, perfect, great, thank you. Now I feel like Zelina isn't just there for filler for Io Sky to beat. And I enjoyed this match. I enjoyed it from the perspective of WWE reminding us why Zelina is even getting an opportunity. That was, to me, see the simple things? Simple. That's all I needed. But also the actual match itself. The actual match itself, I thought was nearly pay-per-view quality. It lasted, only 7 minutes, which is probably one of the reasons I would say it's not pay-per-view, but PLE rather. But it still was solidly done. They got in, they maximized that 7 minutes and 44 seconds. Let me just tell you. Zelina Vega is improving by the week. I'm not ready to put Zelina Vega on, a pedestal from an in-ring perspective of being the queen of in-ring. But, although she did win the queen's crown, so I don't mean any pun there, but Zelina just seems to be getting better and better every week. Like, it seems, and maybe this isn't the case, but at least to me, when I watch her, it's like she's putting in the work outside of TV. Like, she's working on her in-ring maneuvers and psychology and just polishing her performance. It's just, she's starting to feel not just like a manager that can take a few bumps and do a few moves. She feels like she can actually go now. And maybe she was that way already, but I don't know. It just feels like she's improving every time I see her out there, and she's not just, doing botch after botch. Where sometimes managers that get in the ring don't always translate well. And she has just seemingly gotten better by the week. And I'm a big Zelina fan, but you knew she wasn't going to win here, and that's fine. But you get her in a women's title match, that's a good thing. I eventually think Zelina will win the belt. There's no question about it. And I think she should at some point. But the story right now is Io Sky. The story right now is Bayley. Still propping up Io for the time being, by the way. That whole rift, I don't know, one of the two words, between Io and Bayley seemingly has been softened. It's been repaired for the time being. They put it on the back shelf. And hey, if they can somehow revive the damage control group to make us actually give a damn about them, cool. I just feel like most fans don't, and they already thought the group was disbanded. And then here they are all together. So that said, Io Sky did beat Zelina after Vega got shoved into the steps, and she was able to land a double knee strike and a moonsault. And Io Sky beat Zelina, which, hey, no shame here to Zelina. I would have actually liked to see this match at least maybe go 10 to 12 minutes. I think that would have been even better, but hats off to both women. I had no issue with that. And actually for Io Sky, not just complimenting Zelina here, but for Io Sky, I thought it was a really solid victory. It was nice to see her get a win that didn't need a whole lot of distraction and interference. Io needs that. I don't want her to feel like she can only win when she's getting help from Bayley. Okay, that was a good thing. And it also feels weird with Io. I like her entrance music. She's a likable character. So when I see her with Bayley and Damage Control, she doesn't get a negative reaction. She's a babyface in a heel group. That's what she is. And she's difficult to dislike, but also Zelina is too. So I think that this is a kind of an interesting dynamic here. With Bayley eventually going to turn on Io, which we're all waiting for. That could happen at Payback, could happen later on, but Io versus Bayley needs to happen, particularly because Bayley has not gotten a whole lot of in-ring. I know she had a match last week, but it feels like Bayley's been more of a mouthpiece. than and like a figurehead for a group no one seems to care too much about. But in-ring is what I think is missing for Bayley. That is sorely missing. Consistently, I should say. Not that she's not had any matches, of course, but just it feels like she has one match every month. And I think in-ring is what really would help Bayley. Because Bayley is kind of playing sidekick right now. It's bizarre. So anyway, good match here. Moving on. Cody Rhodes comes out and pays tribute to Terry Funk. And he told a story about how he was a kid. He was at an airport, and he heard somebody scream to Dusty at the airport that he's an egg-sucking dog. And he realized it was Terry Funk. And then he said that people who work for WWE call themselves superstars, but they've been called wrestlers, athletes, competitors, but only or also carnies. He used the word carnies, but only a rare few get to call themselves cowboys. He then said that both Bray and Terry are cowboys in the best way possible. And he alluded to the rub, a concept where an iconic wrestler faces someone in the ring who hasn't reached the level and lifts them up. Okay. I'm going to stop you right there, Cody. I am, and some of you are going, oh, here he goes. But this is my show, okay? I get to say things that I want because this is my podcast. So, if anyone doesn't know what the rub is, either you are a brand new fan or you just don't pay attention to wrestling at all. Okay, we all know what the rub is. The rub used to be an inside term that was brought into as Cody would say, to make myself sound smart and have a higher vocabulary, the common nomenclature, right? Let's use words that make me sound smart. And so the rub is a word like babyface that never used to be a publicly used, or at least commonly used, word for good guys and bad guys, like heel and babyface. While we use them so much now, used to be just more of inside terms. A lot of inside terms that have been brought into the common language for fans never used to be so. So for Cody to talk about the rub, I mean, as if he's teaching us something. And if he's like, his smile is also starting to just really wear thin on me. It's like I don't know. He's like trying to be cute with his smile. And that look he gives before he talks, he says his stupid line at the beginning of, what do you want to talk about? Which he didn't this week. He says, I already know what I want to talk about. But that look, that's kind of side smile. I mean, it really makes me want to see someone just hit him over the head with a steel chair. Okay. I can't. I'm starting to really wear thin on the babyface character of Cody. I was starting to come around, and then I'm seeing things that just under my skin that I have buried. That said, hey, most of you love him, and good for you guys. I mean, most of you do, and I understand why. His music's a lot of fun. It's catchy. He does feel like a professional. He doesn't feel like he's playing, a main eventer. He has proven it, and he has, and he's very good in the ring. It's the character. It has nothing to do with his music, nothing to do with even his promos content-wise. It's just his presentation as a babyface makes me want to, now start to throw up a little bit in my mouth. He's too friendly with the fans, and he calls all of us friends. And he knows that when he mentions the name of the city, everyone's going to pop because they're mentioning the name of my city. Isn't that great? He's so just self-aware all the time. But all right, I'll stop. I know many of you are like, shut up. Hey, Cody being the one also to kind of always give his stamp of approval on things. WWE uses him to not just to come in for the big save for like Sammy and Kevin, and then when they're holding their hands up at the end of the match, he's the one pointing to Kevin as if he's the one who's passing the torch to these guys, and it feels very backwards. They're using Cody as kind of like a gatekeeper of sorts. When, well, you got Cody's respect, then, well, you're in. It's like, no, that's not how it should be. But let's move on. Cody said that Terry did that for an entire company and an entire movement, that he reached them, lift them up. He then said that Terry made his mark on wrestling for over 50 years and evolved the entire time. He introduced a video package that paid tribute to Terry, which was very good. I mean, again, the video editing department, the media producing department, it almost never has a misstep. Okay, so after that, Cody said that Terry was hardcore before it was cool, and that he had the pleasure of announcing the next match, which was a Terry Funk hardcore match, which is fine. I mean, now all of a sudden we have Cody playing, matchmaker or whatever it may be. I don't know. But fine, whatever. It gets Cody's babyface character off the screen, so that's good. And we got the Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford Street Profits versus Ridge Holland and Butch. And it was a tornado tag team match, so everybody's in the ring all at once. There was no tagging necessary. And, the Street Profits, for all of the talk about them evolving, have they really done a lot of evolving? Montez is still coming out with the red Solo Cup. They still got the same music. They're still dancing around. Montez Ford is still doing, I mean, again, what's the evolution exactly? I mean, outside of the suits and being associated with Bobby, we were told by Michael Cole, well, it's evolution, they're evolving, but are they? I mean, we're told that they are, just because they're getting more victories, but they haven't really changed the content of who they are that much. Like, seriously, tell me something that they've changed outside of being associated with Bobby Lashley and wearing different clothing. What is the change? I'm all for a change in the Street Profits, but I'm talking like a fundamental change, not the superficial stuff. It's all right now optics, but no, or let me put it this way, as JR would say, it's all sizzle and no steak, right? That's what I feel like the Street Profits are right now. Like there's something there. They're headed towards something bigger and more of an actual change for them, but they're not quite there. They've just like, hey, here's a little bit, but at the core they haven't really changed. It's like, well then, what are we doing? All right, so was this really a hardcore match? No. As one of the blogs put it here, it was very softcore. The one I'm reading right now. That's exactly what this kind of was. And it wasn't exactly a Terry Funk hardcore match, okay? Like, if you go back and watch some of Terry Funk's hardcore matches, this is kind of embarrassing to compare it to a Terry Funk hardcore match. Okay, so they used tables. I guess that was the big spot. I mean, whatever. The biggest spot here, though, was the finish, which ended with a spear on Butch by Lashley. And then Ford and Dawkins hit their new Revelation finish, which is, I guess that's another small change here, through the table and got the victory. This went 14 minutes. So the Street Profits get the victory over Butch and Ridge Holland, which, as you'd expect, was the case. And we did get Lashley spearing Butch. So, and Butch nearly, snapped his neck on the cell. I say that half jokingly, but so dominant performance, somewhat, not exactly a squash, but a matter of fact victory by the Street Profits. Again, not exactly a hardcore match. It was something they could have actually done if the referee just took a bump. Like that. This is something that could have happened without actually being labeled a hardcore match. But anyway, all right. So we got more Bray Wyatt video packages. We got those, woven throughout the night in the show, and just kind of ones that were staple moments in his career. The introduction of the Firefly Funhouse, the birth of the Wyatt family itself, winning the WWE Championship, the thank you speech when he returned as Bray Wyatt. At Extreme Rules in 2022, those moments and that speech that will forever be probably locked in time for Bray Wyatt, when he was just saying he's being himself, this version of himself that he's never shown us, which when you think about it, was that actually part of his character? because he kind of brought that part of him into the rest of the story. So was that really him being just Wyndham? Or was that actually Bray Wyatt showing you a, quote, genuine version of himself, but it was part of the story? I don't mean to make it too deep here, but I'll just go on the surface that was truly Wyndham and not Bray. Either way, it was still an emotional promo that he had about his, he had dark times and that we lifted him up, and that how we told him, some fans told him that, we used his words to help us through difficult times in their life, and he said he lost some things, some people that were very close to him, referencing, of course, Luke Harper. And so, a speech that will live in infamy, and saying thank you to the fans and how he never thought he'd be back here and all that kind of thing. So, that's a speech that if you want to go back and remember him by, is a good one to do. That promo from Bray after he returned last year. All right. So we got a video package of Akira Tozawa and Miz that featured LA Knight's involvement. LA Knight caused the victory for Akira Tozawa, or loss for the Miz. So now this next segment was just A+ for me, and it elevated Knight even further. Knight was brought out, and a massive pop, and he said he'd get to the Miz in a second. But as far as he could tell, tonight is about Bray. He said, sometimes your greatest foes can be your greatest helpers, and he credited Wyatt for preparing him for anything, and that he can feel the spirit of Bray and the Fireflies in the building. He said he can't pretend that they were best friends, but he will echo the sentiment of thank you, Bray. And Knight then turned his attention to the Miz. He said Miz never mattered, and nobody cared about him even when he was champion 12 years ago. Knight said he was just a secondary character in a story between John Cena and The Rock. He then walked up real close to the camera and repeated a phrase that somebody told him a while ago, and said, next time you see me, Miz, run. This was great. This was it's a fine line and a difficult needle to thread when you are able to mix in real life and the storyline progression. And Knight did it to a masterful level. He, didn't completely break character, but did it just enough to show the human element of LA Knight, but also then perfectly transitioned to The Miz and said some things about The Miz that I was waiting for him to say. That even when you were champion, no one gave a damn. And, when John Cena and The Rock had their program, you were the third wheel. No one even was talking about you. It's great. And then the whole deal about the voice, how he said he had too much bass in his voice and mimicking The Miz's voice was perfect. I didn't even think about that insult. That's a great one. He can also bring up, if I were him, I'd bring up the fact that every time he has won a championship, he's been nothing more than a transitional champion. Outside of a couple of IC title runs, he's always the transition champion. I would bring that up. There's a lot really you can hammer, and I hope that LA Knight does. This has been fun. It's been a lot of fun here with LA Knight and The Miz. This is a nice program to continue here for LA Knight. Continue his ascent. All right. They also kept promoting John Cena returning next week in Hershey, Pennsylvania for we don't know what, presumably setting up a match for the following week in India. And also a tag team championship match with the Indashir versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the undisputed tag titles. A match that I have been telling people is on the horizon, and one that actually has the chance to cause a title change. You're in India. These probably are going to be the babyface. I mean, to hear Kevin Owens and Sami get booed is difficult to comprehend right now, but it's very possible given the geography, right? If you're in India, they're going to cheer for the hometown, the hometown heroes of Jinder Mahal, Sangha, and Veer Mahan. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic, but they have a real chance of winning there. And actually, is it the worst thing in the world if Kevin and Sami were to lose those belts? I don't think so. I'd actually like to see what it's like now that we've had a significant run with them, what it's like without the belts and where they go. Did they remain a team? Did they go their separate ways? I think there's just a real chance. There's a real chance that Kevin and Sammy lose those belts in a couple weeks. But the main event here on SmackDown, Finn Balor versus LA Knight. I had no issue with this match. It was about 11 minutes and change, and it ended with Balor going up to the top for the coup de grace, Knight avoiding it, hitting a lariat. He then landed a running elbow and attempted a BTF or a BFT. I'm thinking BLT. Oh, God. No, I'm not going to start that right now. Just like PJ McDonough, right? But Balor slipped out and drove Knight to the mat. He then went back up. Knight met him there, and Balor shoved him down. Knight popped back up, landed a superplex, and then hit the BFT for the victory. After the match, Knight celebrated in the ring, and the lights went down, powered down in the arena. It was the precursor to the Fiend's entrance, and then a foggy lantern was shown in the ring, and a photo of Bray Wyatt was on the big screen. I know a lot of people. First of all, a great ending. Of course, the lantern and Bray standing in the ring as if he's actually there. I mean, it was just perfect. Perfect way to end it with the lantern and all that. I know a lot of people are upset over the fact that Finn Balor took such a clean loss here. But let me remind you of a couple of things. Number one, feel good night. Feel good night. And I mean that as a pun. It was a feel good night bringing up the crowd. Number two, Finn Balor can easily bounce back from this. Easily. He also lost to a guy that is some are perceiving to be champion in the next 6 to 12 months. Okay. I'm talking world champion or undisputed. Okay, so we're talking about a guy that's also getting a massive reaction and many people want in the main event right now. 3, are people going to remember this? Unless it's brought up on a weekly basis, these two are not in a program together. Knight is facing off against Miz, and also Balor is facing off against Seth again, or he's working with PJ. I almost said it. JD McDonough, and the whole rift between him and Damian Priest. So Balor is on a different trajectory than LA Knight. This is a match that was there to put over LA Knight. They're going to forget quickly. People are going to forget quickly about this loss for Finn Balor. Okay, I understand what you're saying, and it's one of those things that it's not going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt him. This was all about this is a Bray Wyatt night. Okay, this is a Bray Wyatt night. This is and really nothing more. Okay, I'm not going to say that this is hurting Finn Balor in any way. It's not. I don't think it is. All right, so tough night. But let's talk quickly about Monday Night Raw. And I know that feels like a million years ago, doesn't it? Given everything that's happened. And on Monday Night Raw, we got a Intercontinental title match between Drew and Chad Gable that was A+. Won that with the first loss on Gunther's record due to countout. That's a very important detail. You would imagine these two are going to face off once again at Payback. And at this point, I would imagine also that they are going to implement a stipulation that says no countouts. This one only ends by pinfall or submission. End of story. I think that's probably where they're going with Chad and Gunther. Also, given the ratings, if you heard that story, that the ratings spiked massively for Gable and for Gunther during that match. That was just a pure wrestling match. Excellent from both sides, not just Chad, but Gunther doing his part. So these two are not done with one another. Payback is in a week. It's going to be a rematch, and I have zero issue with that. Shinsuke Nakamura also had that promo of his career. And I know the bar isn't exactly high for saying that Shin had the promo of his career, because he never gets promos. So there is also that caveat. But the subtitles were perfect for Shinsuke. Absolutely perfect. He was outside of the subtitles, which I really, at this point, I would take subtitles 100 times over him just saying kind of one or two word responses. It was well laid out. The last line that he said of "watch your back" was perfect. It was all about Seth's back and how he has an actual broken back, and that eventually he's going to need surgery. And Shinsuke selling the narrative that Seth is constantly in pain, bringing his kids into it, bringing his wife into it, You're just making this personal about how he's always in pain, and you're champion, but at what cost? Excellent. I mean, can we get more of this from Shin? Please? It was awesome. It shows you what you can do when a promo... let me just say this. Is there anyone out there that doesn't feel more connected to Shinsuke's character and this story after last Monday night? Is there anybody? I mean, prior to that show last Monday, you can't tell me you don't feel more invested. It was just... It shows you the power of a promo. And it's something I think that they should duplicate in some way with Asuka. It shows you that, sure, okay, fine. They have a very heavy accent. They're difficult to hear on camera, and I understand that. But here's the solution. And I'm not saying do this every week, but if you have something very important that you need to sell with those, and this doesn't just apply for Shinsuke and Asuka, for anyone that has a very heavy accent from another, and their native language is not English. That's not their native tongue. Here's a perfect way to do it. We accept subtitles. I have not heard a bad thing about this promo. And it was very effective. Because they can also make up for it with tone, with cadence, with body language, with the setting, the lights behind him, sitting down. There's an environment you can create, right? There's so much you can do that overshadows the fact that they are speaking another language. And bam, they finally found that combination on Monday night. I loved it. What I also mentioned on the Monday Night Raw review with Seth is this is a real injury. This wasn't made up. Which does make you wonder, how long can Seth keep this going in real life here? When is he going to need surgery? He's had broken back for a couple of years. And we're all learning about it now. And it makes you wonder, okay, well, how much longer can he go for real before they drop it? Yeah, that is a genuine concern. And it's one that they mixed real life and they blurred the line, as they say, between reality and fiction. And it's a fun line to be on because at some point, this is going to be something he has to go and fix. And the fact that he hasn't tells you that the recovery time is probably significant. And I believe I mentioned this on Monday. If WrestleMania 40 is going to be interfered with, he's probably going to work through the pain of after WrestleMania 40, and then he'll fix it there, because I don't imagine Seth is going to say, well, after 4 years, let's do it before WrestleMania 40 and miss WrestleMania 40, right? I think he would only do that if it was to the point where he couldn't even work. Where like he just is in so much severe pain all the time that he's like, no, I know that this sucks. I'm going to miss WrestleMania 40, but if I don't do this now, I can't function day to day. That's different. But if it's a pain he's learned how to manage over this amount of time, then yeah, I'm sure he was probably going to keep the belt for some time, and maybe through WrestleMania 40, drop it there and then go get his back fixed. It's just kind of what I'm thinking here. And if I were him, I would also kind of say, hey, I know I'm the workhorse here. That's my whole gig. Gig. Out of my voice crack. I think I'm going through puberty. That's his whole gig. But at the same time, there is that factor of wear, tear, mileage. You only have so many bumps on your body, left. So anyway, we'll see where that goes. But this is now a fun program. And it does at least present you with the option to argue intelligently that Shin could win it. I still don't think he will. I still think Seth is the overwhelming favorite. But instead of being an absolute 100% slam dunk that Seth wins at Payback against Shinsuke, you're now left to wonder, well, this is a real injury. Shinsuke presented a hell of a case. They're giving him more time. They gave him a promo that they never give him. Maybe, right? That's the goal. If I was in production, I would say, hey, everyone knows X wrestler isn't going to win. What can we do to plant that seed of doubt in the minds of fans? That's what my goal would be, particularly with matches that seem, absolutely overwhelming that whoever it is, wrestler X, isn't going to win. So, all right. What else happened on Raw that was at least noteworthy? New Day, sorry, no one cares. I I just don't. Sorry. We got Rhea versus Candice LeRae, where Rhea beat Candice in a minute, and it was just, it was embarrassing. But Rodriguez came out and challenged Ripley to a women's world title match, and so that was the big story there. And Miz talked about, LA Knight, of course. Then we got Miz versus Akira Tozawa. That's where LA Knight interfered, costing Miz that match. And we got Lynch and Trish having a promo to say that they will finally end their feud at Payback in a steel cage. I believe the fans were chanting, nobody cares, like we don't give a something. It was not a welcoming chant towards this program. It just has not resonated. In the weeks to come, we can break down why. But Trish and Becky have not really gotten the crowd invested. And I think there's more than one person you could point the finger at. I don't think it's one single thing. I think it's a host of things. So, in the weeks to come, we will dissect that after this program is over. But let's see. We also got the women's tag team champions of Chelsea Green and Piper Niven beating Kaden Carter and Katana Chance in a minute and a half. So the tag team championships for the women's side of things are back to complete irrelevance, which, I mean, I don't even have faith anymore that this can be a consistently big deal in the women's division, because half the time they don't have an actual tag team division and the tag team champions are often unopposed. Or you have two big names win it, but then they quickly lose it to some other team. It pops in and out of relevancy. It's never consistently showcased. Whoever has those tag team championships often they get less TV time as champions, which is completely backwards, of course. So, and then let's see. In the main event, we got Kevin and Sammy versus Finn and Damian, which turned into a 6-person tag team match with Cody on the Kevin Owens and Sammy side, and on the men's heel side of things, of course, Finn, Damian, and Dominic. And this lasted 14 minutes, quite a long main event. And Cody, Kevin, and Sammy beat Damian Priest and Dominic in 14 minutes, and Dom was the one to take the pin. So this, again, I don't like Dom, who's particularly the biggest heat drawing figure of the Judgment Day group, taking the pinfall too often. He's such a heat magnet. I don't like seeing that too much. It's satisfying, but you want to do it rarely, because that's the one you want to see get his ass kicked the most. I think it's more fun to see him get pinfall after pinfall that he doesn't deserve, hit low blows, hit cheap shots, hide behind Ripley, hide behind Damian, hide behind Finn. I don't hate it. I just don't want to see this too often, even though it's satisfying. So it's kind of like I'm asking for delayed gratification, if that makes sense. But all right. Well, guys, it's fun to be back. I'm glad I'm back here in my studio, back after vacation. I hope everyone's enjoying the last bit of summer that we have. For many of you, school for your kids or yourself is about to start or has started. So football right around the season, or right around the corner. It is football season. Check out the Football Function podcast that's hosted by Michael Ritter. I think you guys will enjoy it. Our SmackDown co-host. You can also go ad-free for this show at patreon.com/WWE podcast, or on Apple Podcasts. You have an ad-free button right there with a 7-day free trial. WWEpodcast.com offers a VIP ad-free experience, or merch. WWEpodcastshop.com. So a lot of cool stuff happening, guys, and we'll get things rolling in a big way this week, and it'll be a pay-per-view PLE week. So a lot of coverage coming your way, predictions, co-hosts, and all that kind of stuff. So good to be back. Hope everyone's enjoying themselves, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.